some depictions of the temple. Okay? This is the depiction of Aaron's temple. Okay? We don't have time to talk about any of the details of this. We're just trying to get you to see something here. Opposite on the wall of that is this temple. Okay? Now, what does this mean? And unfortunately, lots of these aren't labeled. This one happens to be labeled. This is Aaron, so we're confident that's the temple. This one's not labeled. One of the first ones on the scene to talk about this said, when we see something like this so developed, so un-Jewish-like in terms of art. See, the idea before 1935 was that Judaism didn't have any art. They didn't represent themselves or their God in art. And a guy named Erwin Goodenough studied this problem, and he looked at this temple and he said, you know what this is? This is Hellenistic Judaism. This is a Judaism that is completely Hellenized, and this temple teaches us, in the same way that Philo would teach us, through a whole series of numbers. Okay? For example, if you look here, and I don't have a pointer actually, but if you count from the bottom up, you'll see there are 7 walls there of 7 colors. You'll see there's 10 pillars. There's sets of 3s. There's these little Greek tuches on the ceiling. And Goodenough proposed that the reason we had the Temple of Cosmos was a Hellenistic idea reflecting Platonism, much like what Philo was doing. Okay? And so the initial response to this was Goodenough's very, very complex system that argues to us that parallel to Rabbinic Judaism was a sophisticated Hellenistic kind of Judaism that preserved temple things in a cosmic way. His arguments tend to be too complex, and people haven't been convinced by these arguments. And then we found something else, and this is the conclusion of what I want to say because we've only got 3 minutes left. They discovered a synagogue at Beit Alpha in Israel. And this synagogue, if you look at the very bottom, I can't find a colored picture of the whole thing, so I'm giving you a diagram here. What's at the very bottom here? It's the scene of Abraham and Isaac, right? What's the middle? It's the zodiac. And what's above it? Implements from the temple. So what do we really have here? We have preserved within Judaism in the 4th, 5th, and 6th century AD in the land of Israel, we have the idea of Temple of Cosmos, this combination of symbols that speak to us that this idea that Josephus tells us did survive within Judaism, and this juxtaposition of the zodiac with temple things. And in fact, we have, I should have shown you these two. This is that wonderful Abraham scene. Here is our wonderful zodiac, which people are still trying to get over in Israel. And the fact is they've dug up 4 more scenes just like this that have Abraham, they have a zodiac in the middle, and then they have a temple at the top. So in conclusion, let's just see a couple of pictures here. Here's the wonderful synagogue at Tiberias, the Hamat Tiberias, and you'll see here we have lions on the bottom, but we have the zodiac juxtaposed with the temple scene. Here's another zodiac. Here's a close-up of this scene that has temple implements. And this is a really fascinating one. This was at Sepphoris, but it's largely destroyed, but it actually has a picture of Aaron in the middle there between the zodiac and the temple things at the top. So in conclusion, it's likely that textual and iconographic evidence suggests a form or diverse forms of Judaism that flourished in the early rabbinic period. And I think what's going to start emerging within scholarly circles is the understanding that there was a group of people, how they're related to rabbinic Judaism is unclear, but at least parallel to rabbinic Judaism. And it's not a Hellenistic Judaism, it's a temple priestly kind of Judaism. And it survives next to rabbinic Judaism, and eventually it tends to die out. And the rabbis take over this idea and turn it more into the idea of that the tabernacle was the earthly representation of a heavenly temple. But nevertheless, this idea has survived. It's survived both textually and also most dramatically, iconographically. And for Latter-day Saints, I think we can all be comforted to know that there's evidence that in fact people have shared our belief that what happens in these temples is of cosmic significance, the reality of binding heaven and the earth. Thank you. One quick question. Go.
What is the connection between the zodiac and the 12 tribes?
Depends on who you talk to.
What?
Well, depends on who you talk to. Typically, this becomes more of a symbol of sacred time than of the tribes. 12 can do lots of things, but this tends, we think, to be more connected with time than the tribes. Good.